There is a conflict unfolding right now completely out of sight. It's not happening in the skies or on land, but deep, deep beneath the waves, in a dark, cold world where, believe it or not, the fate of our modern life is actually being decided. So let's dive in.
I want you to just think about that for a second. Seriously, what if one day the internet just poof? No connection, global finance grinds to a halt, no communication. I know, it sounds like science fiction, right? But the actual infrastructure that makes it all possible is way more vulnerable than you could ever imagine. Yeah, that's right. 99%. The entire digital world, our economies, our secrets, our TikToks, everything, it's all reliant on this huge network of fiber optic cables that are just laid out across the seabed. And this crazy reliance on stuff we can't even see has turned the deep ocean into a whole new kind of battlefield.
And lately, we've been seeing a string of these, very strange accidents. Cables are getting severed, pipelines are getting damaged. But are they really accidents? Or is something way more deliberate happening down there in the dark? That's the central mystery we're going to unpack today. Okay, so to understand what's really going on, we first have to look at the motive. What is driving nations into the abyss? Well, it's a resource race. It's basically a modern-day gold rush, happening thousands of meters below the surface. And this isn't just about planting a flag somewhere. We are in what people are calling the fourth industrial revolution. Think about it. Electric vehicles, your smartphone, advanced weapons, green energy, all of it depends on a handful of critical minerals. And guess what? Huge untapped reserves of these things are just sitting there on the ocean floor, making the seabed one of the most strategic and valuable pieces of real estate on the planet. And let me tell you, no one is playing this game better than China. What's so fascinating here is how you can literally see China's strategy laid out. Through their state-owned companies, they have locked up more deep-sea exploration contracts than any other nation. And look where they are. These aren't random spots on a map. They are strategically chosen to control future supply chains and, maybe more importantly, to establish a presence right next to vital U.S. military bases like Guam and critical global trade routes. This really breaks down the goals of the two main players perfectly. China is playing the long game. They're aiming for global strategic dominance. They want to control the raw materials for all the industries of tomorrow. Russia, on the other hand, is driven by something much more immediate. It needs to sanction-proof its military. It needs a sovereign supply of materials to keep its war machine running, no matter what economic pressure the West applies. So, two very different paths to the exact same prize. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this whole economic race, it provides the perfect cover for something far more dangerous. The exact same scientific missions that are out there mapping for minerals are also, quietly, preparing an invisible battlefield. The key idea you gotta get is this thing called the dual-use doctrine. Now, it's a fancy term, but it's a simple idea. That ship out there claiming to be studying marine geology, it's also collecting critical data for submarine warfare. Every detail, the exact depth, the composition of the seafloor, every underwater mountain and canyon, that becomes a roadmap for how to hide a nuclear sub or exactly where to find the vulnerabilities in your enemy's defenses. And this leads us to China's main military goal under the sea, creating what it calls a transparent ocean. The idea is to use a massive network of sensors and data to make the entire underwater world totally visible to its own forces while keeping it completely dark and unpredictable for its adversaries, especially the U.S. Navy. And this isn't just a theory, they're actually building it. It's been nicknamed the Great Underwater Wall. It's this super sophisticated network of sensors they're laying all across the South China Sea. It uses these advanced acoustic sensors that don't just hear a submarine, they can pinpoint its exact direction and location with frankly terrifying accuracy. They're basically trying to build a virtual fortress against even the stealthiest enemy subs. Now, while China builds this giant network, Russia has a different kind of weapon, a secretive, super elite unit known as GUGI. The official name is the Main Directorate of Deep Sea Research, but in reality, it's this shadowy part of the military that reports directly to the very top. Their specialty? Seabed warfare, and they operate some of the most bizarre and advanced underwater vessels ever built. And just look at the hardware these guys have. The Belgorod, it's a colossal mothership submarine. Then there's the Poseidon, this terrifying nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed torpedo that basically can't be stopped.
And maybe the most important for our story, the Loshurik, a little mini sub that can dive to incredible depths and mess with things on the seabed, like, say, a data cable. It gives Russia this asymmetrical advantage, a way to strike where nobody else can even reach. Okay, so now we have the motives. We're talking resources and military advantage. And we have the means. So let's circle all the way back to those accidents from the beginning. Suddenly, they don't seem so accidental anymore, do they? They look like a deliberate strategy to turn our global connectivity into a weapon. Just look at Taiwan. The pattern of cable cuts around the island is just relentless. As you can see here, we're talking about more than 20 cuts in just 5 years. Come on, that's not bad luck. That's a systematic campaign of harassment. It's a way to test Taiwan's resilience and a practice for a potential communications blockade in a real conflict. And they do it with perfect plausible deniability. It's brilliant, really. Here's the playbook. Step 1, you use those scientific ships to map exactly where the cable is. Step 2, a random fishing boat or cargo ship turns off its tracking system. It goes dark. Step 3, it drags its anchor right over the cable. And step 4, it reappears miles away, turns its tracker back on, and says, "Whoa, me, just an accident." It's simple, it's effective, and it is nearly impossible to prove. And this isn't just happening in Asia. The incidents in the Baltic Sea strongly suggest this is a coordinated effort. One intelligence report puts it pretty bluntly. The partnership between Russia and China now extends to hybrid attacks on the West's most critical lifelines. So this brings us to the final, and honestly, the most audacious part of this whole strategy. This isn't just about resources or preparing for a fight. The ultimate goal is to fundamentally rewrite the map of the world by using science to legitimize massive territorial claims. Get a load of this number: 1.2 million square kilometers. That is the insane size of the Arctic seabed that Russia is on the verge of annexing. We're talking about the North Pole itself. And how'd they pull it off? By spending decades meticulously mapping the geology of the seafloor and then presenting all that scientific data to a UN commission to argue that, hey, this huge area is a natural extension of our continental shelf. It's a stunning act of lawfare. China is using a similar tactic down in the South China Sea. It sends its research vessels into the exclusive economic zones of its neighbors, places like Vietnam and the Philippines, without permission. Every single survey they conduct is basically a performative act of sovereignty. It's an attempt to create a new reality on the seabed and just normalize its control over these disputed waters. So when you put it all together, the endgame becomes crystal clear. It's really a 4-part strategy. First, you dominate the resources of the future. Second, you prepare the undersea domain for a war. Third, you hold the world's digital and energy lifelines hostage. And finally, you use science and law to literally redraw the map in your favor. So you see, this isn't a future threat. It's happening right now, in the silent darkness of the deep ocean. The tectonic plates of global power are shifting on the seafloor, and the outcome of this hidden war, well, it's going to determine who holds the keys to the economy, to global security, and to the very map of the 21st century.